This car comes from a fascinating era in automotive history, an era before reliability was invented, not discovered, not perfected, invented. Back then, manufacturers weren't asking, will this start every morning for 10 years? They were asking far more important questions like, does it feel alive? Does it sound interesting? And can we make this with slightly thinner metal to save a few francs? And honestly, I respect that. I am not talking about a specific car. I am talking about cars from this period, whether it's a Citroën, an Alfa Romeo, a Triumph, or something equally optimistic. These cars were built with a very different philosophy. They weren't designed to be invisible appliances. They were experiences. Occasionally unforgettable ones. Occasionally unforgettable for the wrong reason. You see, modern cars are very good at not involving you. They isolate you from noise, vibration, effort, and responsibility. Old cars do the opposite. They involve you in everything. Every vibration is feedback. Every smell is information. Every new noise is a conversation starter. Take a French classic, for example. A DS21 doesn't break down. It expresses itself. The suspension isn't leaking. It's redistributing hydraulic enthusiasm. The electrics aren't faulty. They're simply having a philosophical disagreement. British cars, of course, have their own charm. A Triumph or an MG doesn't fail. It reminds you that optimism is an essential part of ownership. You don't turn the key expecting certainty. You turn it hoping today is a good day. And when it starts, you feel like you've earned it. Italian cars are even more honest. An Alfa will tell you exactly how it's feeling, usually loudly and at high revs. It may not be reliable, but it will be passionate about it. And if something does fall off, you're almost impressed it stayed on for this long. The thing is, these cars were built before reliability became the goal. Back then, character came first. Engineering was brave, sometimes reckless, occasionally brilliant, and only loosely concerned with the future owner's sanity. And yet, this is the important bit, we forgive them. We forgive the cold starts that feel like negotiations. We forgive the warning lights that don't really warn you of anything. We forgive the way a simple drive somehow becomes a story, because when a car demands a bit of patience, it gives something back. It slows you down, it makes you pay attention, it turns driving into participation rather than transport. You don't just arrive somewhere, you experience the getting there. So yes, this car was built before reliability was invented, but it was built after charm, personality, and joy had already been perfected. And sometimes that's a trade-off worth making. At first glance, calling a classic car eco-friendly sounds like something said just before being escorted out of a dinner party. After all, these are machines that predate catalytic converters. Think fuel economy is a suggestion, and occasionally smell like unburnt optimism. And yet, stick with me, because classic cars might be one of the most quietly sustainable things an enthusiast can own. First, the greenest car is often the one that already exists. Modern cars are marvels of technology, but building them takes an extraordinary amount of energy. Mining materials, manufacturing batteries, shipping parts across the planet, and assembling everything in vast factories. A classic car, on the other hand, is already here. The carbon cost was paid decades ago. Keeping a 1970s Porsche 911 or a classic Mercedes W123 on the road isn't consumption, it's preservation. It's recycling at a grand mechanical scale. Instead of scrapping and replacing, you maintain, repair and reuse. You're not chasing the latest upgrade, you're making something old last longer. Environmentally speaking, that's surprisingly virtuous. Second, classic cars encourage moderation. No one daily drives a 40-year-old Alfa through rush hour traffic without a strong sense of self-reflection. Classics tend to come out for weekends, sunny evenings, or special occasions. They're driven less, cared for more, and appreciated deeply. That alone dramatically reduces their environmental impact. A lovingly maintained Mazda MX-5 from the 1990s, doing a few thousand miles a year, is hardly the climate villain it's made out to be, especially compared to a brand new SUV doing short trips to the shops while carrying nothing but a reusable bag and mild guilt. Third, classic cars resist the culture of disposability. Modern ownership often follows a simple pattern: buy, use, trade in, repeat. Classic car ownership flips that entirely. You form a relationship. You learn its habits. You repair rather than replace. You rebuild rather than discard. A Toyota Land Cruiser that's been running for 30 years isn't just transport. It's proof that durability is environmental responsibility. A Honda engine that keeps going with basic maintenance is a quiet protest against planned obsolescence. These cars weren't designed to be fashionable for 3 years. They were designed to endure. And yes, let's talk about the word investment. Not every classic car is going to fund your retirement, and that's probably for the best. But many classics hold their value precisely because they're not being churned through a rapid consumption cycle. A well-looked after BMW E30 or early MX-5 isn't a depreciating appliance. It's a long-term asset that rewards care, patience, and restraint. So no, classic cars won't single-handedly save the planet. They still burn fuel, they still make noise, and they still occasionally drip oil in a way that feels personal. But they represent something modern life is desperately short on: longevity, repairability, and respect for what already exists. In a world obsessed with the new, the fastest, and the disposable, choosing to preserve and enjoy an old machine might be one of the most quietly eco-friendly decisions you can make. Plus, it looks better than a spreadsheet. You're listening to Classic Car Radio. If you want some quiet thoughts in the background, you're in the right place. There are plenty of complicated ways to feel better in life. Meditation apps, cold plunges, inspirational quotes from people who definitely wake up earlier than you. But there's one mood booster nobody talks about, mostly because the people who know are too busy trying to find parts on eBay: the classic car. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can something built in the 70s with the structural integrity of a sandwich and the reliability of a French electrical system improve your mood? Well, let me give you 3 very solid, very scientific reasons, or at least 3 reasons that work for me. Reason 1, classic cars make you feel like the main character. Drive a modern car and you're basically piloting a dishwasher with headlights. Drive a classic and suddenly you're starring in your own film. A Citroën DS makes you feel like a time-travelling diplomat. A Triumph TR6 convinces you you're more charming than you actually are. And a Porsche 928, well, that just makes you feel like you should have a yacht, even if the closest thing you actually have is a kayak from Decathlon. There's something magical about the way old cars look, smell, and sound. They give you instant character development. Even your bad hair days look intentional when you're climbing out of a 1970s Alfa Romeo. Reason 2, classic cars force you to slow down, and slowing down feels good. It's impossible to be stressed while driving a Morris Minor. The car simply won't allow it. Try rushing and it will respond by quietly shaking its head and possibly removing a piece of itself in protest. Modern cars make everything too easy. Half the time you don't even feel like you're driving, you're supervising. But an old car demands your attention in a way that pulls you out of your head and into the moment. You have to listen, feel, and occasionally bargain with it. And in that process, everything else, deadlines, notifications, the existential dread of why did Sharon schedule another meeting, fades away. It's mechanical mindfulness, but with better smells. Reason 3, classic cars create tiny adventures. Without even trying, you don't take a classic out just to buy milk. You take it out because maybe the sun is out, maybe you finished work early, or maybe you're feeling particularly brave and want to see if the old electrics are in a cooperative mood. Even a simple 5-mile drive becomes a story. Maybe you meet someone at the petrol station who used to own the exact same MGB, but in mustard yellow. Maybe someone gives you a thumbs up, which counts as more social interaction than you usually get in a week. Or maybe, just maybe, everything works perfectly, and you spend the whole journey grinning like a child because your 40-year-old Volvo hasn't made a single alarming noise. Classic cars transform the ordinary into the slightly ridiculous, the slightly magical, and the definitely memorable. And that's good for the soul. So yes, they break, they leak, they squeak, and occasionally they demand rituals you can't explain to normal people. But they'll also lift your mood faster than any wellness practice I've ever tried. Because when you're behind the wheel of something old, whether it's a Beetle, a Jag, or some questionable French masterpiece held together by enthusiasm and rust, the world feels lighter. You feel lighter, and sometimes that's all the therapy you need.